God, you guys were so excited there. I've never seen a group of Canadian journalists' faces light up. You're in the Oval Office. You're going to ask the president a big question.
We're not like that when we see you.
You're just like you were not. You're never. You look when you look at me. You're just like. The president's there. It's all great.
What about the pipeline?
Good discussion.
Je vais laisser au premier ministre le soin de révéler ce qu'il veut ou ce qu'il ne veut pas par rapport aux conversations qu'il a avec le président.
La perception sur la rencontre d'hier, c'était une bonne rencontre selon vous? Est-ce qu'il est bien fait?
Et moi, je pense que tout le monde comprend que c'est compliqué, renégocier ces accords commerciaux-là. Ce qu'on a vu hier, c'est un président américain très respectueux du premier ministre, qui a même complimenté à plusieurs reprises. Alors, je pense qu'il y a une bonne relation, ce qui est le fondement d'arriver à pouvoir avoir une bonne entente commerciale. Merci.
Non, je me demandais parce on semble ramener Keystone XL dans les discussions avec les Américains pour, je sais pas, peut-être amadouer, donner quelque chose pour avoir un allègement pour les tarifs. Vous pensez quoi de ce retour, de ce projet-là?
Je pense que je vais vous envoyer tout de suite mon porte-parole qui est sur le dossier aujourd'hui. C'est Simon Pierre. Fait que je vous l'envoie tout de suite.
Puis d'un point de vue environnement, par contre, c'est dans votre cause que ça vous préoccupe?
Bien, c'est certain que c'est préoccupant de voir que M. Carney est en train d'ouvrir les vannes pour davantage de production pétrolière et gazière. Il s'en va aux États-Unis pour promouvoir le message et les demandes des pétrolières, encore une fois. Il a abandonné la lutte climatique depuis qu'il est au pouvoir et là, il s'enfoncera encore davantage dans le pétrole. Fait que oui, clairement, c'est extrêmement préoccupant de voir aller.
About the Oval Office meeting yesterday and what your thoughts are on how it went?
I think it went as well as could be expected. I think we have to be patient. These are important discussions, and I think we've got the best man possible to be there to represent us.
And what do you think about Keystone being revived? Should it be revived?
We have to look at everything from both climate change as well as the economy. So I'll be listening to those discussions and see what happens. Thank you.
How do you think the Oval Office meeting went yesterday?
I think it went very well. I think it's a complex discussion and negotiation between two countries, and I think we've got the right people there.
And what about Keystone being brought up? What do you think about Mr. Carney?
Well, again, I think there are important discussions that need to take place with the United States. I know that it's something that Alberta has long advocated for, and I think I have great confidence in the Prime Minister and his team to negotiate the best deal for Canada.
There's a report out that Lantsman is dismissing any prospect of an auto deal between the U.S. and Canada. What are your thoughts on that? It's a report that just came out from CTV.
I really don't have any thoughts on it because I've just heard it right now, and so I'd rather reflect on something before just saying things without giving any thought, or haven't seen the report.
But if that is the case, what if there's no deal?
I know you want an answer, and what I'm telling you, if I haven't given time to reflect on it and think about it, I'd rather not give answers off the cuff.
What do you think about the Keystone conversation coming back into play?
I haven't heard it coming back into play.
Okay.
McKinnon sur vos demandes sur les chauffeurs à rabais, puis lui semble pelleter ça dans le cours des provinces de Québec en disant qu'il travaille sur la certification, sur le contrôle. Êtes-vous déçu d'entendre, dans le fond, par rapport à vos demandes, on semble refiler la responsabilité aux provinces?
Bien là, absolument. Là. Je pense que c'est clair. Là, je veux dire, l'Agence du revenu du Canada, c'est eux autres qui s'assurent que tout le monde paye ses taxes, ses impôts. C'est l'Agence du revenu du Canada aussi qui s'assure que tout le monde soit classé dans la bonne catégorie, là, que les faux entrepreneurs, on puisse les identifier pour leur dire que c'est pas vrai, que ce sont des employés dans les faits. C'est l'assurance emploi aussi qui fait le même travail là-dessus. Puis il y a Immigration Canada aussi qui a un rôle à jouer aussi dans qui est-ce qu'on accepte, puis dans les règles aussi qu'on impose aux gens qui arrivent ici, parce qu'on sait qu'il y a de l'exploitation de travailleurs temporaires. Donc, franchement, non, c'est vraiment pas une réponse, en fait. C'est triste, en fait, de voir un gouvernement qui décide parce qu'il y a des problèmes qui ne sont pas 100% dans sa cour, parce qu'effectivement, il y a des choses qui peuvent se gérer dans ce dossier-là au niveau du Québec, au niveau de l'Ontario, des provinces, mais ils ont beaucoup à se reprocher, puis de voir pelleter les problèmes dans le cours des autres, je pense que c'est pas l'attitude qu'on attend d'un gouvernement.
Je vous rappelle un peu vos inquiétudes. On a vu le nombre d'accidents augmenter. Vous avez exposé un peu le stratagème, bon, comment que les travailleurs allaient s'incorporer eux-mêmes puis allaient après ça être embauchés de différentes façons. Mais l'impact concret de ça sur les routes, c'est quoi?
Bien, la première chose, pour continuer ce que je vous mentionnais tantôt, c'est, je pense que le gouvernement fait de l'aveuglement volontaire. Il décide de ne pas voir, en fait, les problèmes qu'il y a dans sa cour. Parce qu'on le sait, là, il y a eu une augmentation de 35 du nombre d'accidents en 2023 et 2024 au Québec. En fait, des accidents qui ont causé des morts avec des poids lourds. Donc, c'est du monde qui meurt sur les routes. On parle aussi, même au niveau canadien, du même genre d'augmentation. Ça fait 4 années de suite qu'il y a plus de morts que l'année d'avant sur les routes au niveau canadien dans des incidents impliquant des véhicules commerciaux. Donc, c'est comme évident, en fait, qu'il y a un problème sur les routes, qu'il y a un enjeu de sécurité. Ça ne fait pas juste, on tue l'industrie du camionnage en fermant les yeux sur cette pratique-là, mais on tue aussi des vraies personnes.
Merci bien d'avoir pris le temps.
Ça fait plaisir.
While Conservatives are welcoming the renewed interest in Keystone from U.S. President Donald Trump, we should point out that this should be very low-hanging fruit. Keystone was something that the previous Conservative government approved way back in 2010. In fact, it was one of Donald Trump's first actions in his first term was to sign the executive order supporting Keystone XL. So it's no surprise that he has brought this back up at this point in time. And while Keystone XL would, of course, be a benefit to Canada, it was Liberal inaction that allowed a previous president to kill Keystone XL. And remember, Mark Carney cheered on Justin Trudeau as Justin Trudeau was cancelling pipelines here at home. Getting Keystone XL built is one part of the problem, but a production cap preventing new oil and gas development here in Canada won't do us any good. It doesn't matter if you can build a pipeline and put it in the ground if you can't put anything through it. In addition, this pipeline does not truly solve Canada's sovereignty problem. Under the Liberals, Canada has become even more dependent on the U.S., and while this pipeline would provide benefits to Canada, it still means that we're selling our energy to the U.S. And that's why Conservatives renew our call to truly get the government out of the way of the energy sector. We're calling on the government to lift the production cap on Canadian oil and gas, eliminate the shipping ban, which solely applies to Canadian energy shipments off the West Coast. Conservatives believe in a country where Canada can be self-sufficient when it comes to energy. That's why we support a west-to-east pipeline to displace foreign oil coming into eastern refineries. That's why we support a pipeline to take central and western Canadian energy to our BC shores. Mark Carney has explained what he's going to do with the problem right now of getting that pipeline built to our western shores. A pipeline to the West Coast would open up Asian markets, countries in Asia that are pleading with us to sell them our energy. None of that is solved by the current Liberal leave-it-in-the-ground approach. So once again, we're welcoming this renewed interest, pointing out the fact that this has long been something that President Trump has supported, and Mark Carney can't really claim credit for that because it was his government that stood in the way of so many pipelines and did nothing to champion Keystone XL during the previous administration in the United States. So happy to take your questions on that, but that's what I want to come.
C'est un premier pas encourageant pour vous, donc, M. Scheer, que ça fasse partie des négociations.
Mais il n'y a pas de négociations. Le président Trump appuie le projet Keystone. Il a déjà signé son nom sur un ordre pour approuver cette négociation. Si Mark Carney offre quelque chose à Donald Trump pour Keystone, ça c'est un très mauvais résultat pour les Canadiens parce que M. Trump veut le Keystone. So I'll just say again, it shouldn't really be part of a negotiation. Donald Trump has already signaled he supports Keystone. He signed an order approving it back in 2017 in his first term. If Mark Carney is offering something up to Donald Trump in exchange for Keystone, then Mark Carney is the worst negotiator in the world because Donald Trump has already signaled that he wants it. You don't have to give something up in order to get something from someone who's already signaled they're going to do it.
So you want this pipeline built, but you're saying that the government shouldn't be offering anything in exchange to make sure that it does get revived, despite multiple cancellation and pauses. So is that exactly the case? And also, what if the government said, hey, we'll pay for it? Do you think that that's something that Canada should do to ensure that this pipeline gets built? Like, how high on your priority is getting the pipeline built?
So you're asking about if Canadian tax dollars should go to build a pipeline in the United States? I mean, I'll just point out that before Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and the Liberals came to power, investors built pipelines. It's only been since the Liberals have been in power that taxpayers have had to subsidize pipeline projects. We used to have a country where investors were fighting to get their dollars into Canada, to build pipelines in Canada, so we can sell our energy, so that workers can have jobs and provincial governments can benefit from those royalties. Under this Liberal government, those investment dollars are now going to the United States. TransCanada Energy announced $8.5 billion worth of new energy projects in the U.S. It's taking Canadian investment dollars to go to work in the American economy. It's jobs lost here in Canada to the benefit of the U.S. economy, and that's a terrible indictment on Liberal energy policies.
Vous dites que vous n'êtes pas en faveur vraiment d'un Keystone XL, vous voulez un pipeline vers l'ouest. Est-ce que la position
vous pouvez répéter le préambule?
Vous voulez un pipeline vers l'ouest. Donc, est-ce que la position des conservateurs, c'est d'ignorer la volonté de la Colombie-Britannique de ne pas avoir de pipeline sur son territoire?
Premièrement, nous appuyons le projet de Keystone. C'était une politique de le Parti conservateur il y a beaucoup des années. Mais nous reconnaissons, nous sommes les champions pour le secteur énergétique et nous appuyons les pipelines dans toutes les directions. Nous soulignons le fait que le projet Keystone ne réglait pas le problème que le Canada, sous les libéraux, vraiment avoir seulement un marché pour livrer nos produits. Sous les politiques libérales, nous sommes plus dépendants sur les Américains qu'en avant. Nous aussi appuyons les autres pipelines. Pour une pipeline à l'ouest, on ouvre les marchés asiatiques. C'est vraiment important pour avoir beaucoup plus d'argent pour notre produit, pour nos travailleurs et pour nos gouvernements.
Vous dites quoi de l'opposition de David Eby et de la Colombie-Britannique?
Ce sont les projets énergétiques, les grands projets comme les pipelines, c'est dans l'intérêt national. Et nous avons un gouvernement fédéral pour les projets comme ça. C'est très, très clair. Et, le Parti conservateur a déjà obtenir les résultats avec les pipelines qui va entre les provinces et on peut faire la même chose en futur.
Just on your point about how Canada shouldn't be giving anything up to have Keystone go to the United States. Danielle Smith today said that she told Mark Carney that Canada shouldn't be threatening to withhold oil. It should be...
Sorry, you speak a little
louder.
Sorry,
I'll come closer. Yeah. Danielle Smith today said that Mark Carney shouldn't be threatening to withhold oil to the United States. He should be promising more oil to the U.S. in exchange for things. So isn't that kind of what the Prime Minister is doing?
I'm pointing out the fact that Donald Trump has signaled that he supports pipelines. He supports the Keystone Pipeline for a long time. It was one of his first acts when he was president the first time in 2017. He signed an executive order approving it. So what I'm pointing out is that this should be low-hanging fruit. I mean, this is something that the president, the American president, having more access to Canadian energy is something that should be a matter of course. And it shouldn't be that difficult for Mark Carney to obtain a guarantee on that. The problem that still remains is that as long as he keeps his leave-it-in-the-ground policies like the shipping ban, like the production cap, it's not going to do the energy sector that much good. So what we're calling on the government to do is let's make sure we get this right. If the president proceeds with Keystone, let's do everything we can on the domestic side here. Let's lift that production cap. Let's open up repeal the shipping ban so that projects to the West Coast can proceed and open up those Asian markets.
Last question. Are you ready to support the border bill now that the Canada Post mail aspect and the lawful aspect parts have been removed?
Well, I believe the new bill is just about to be tabled today, so we will take a look at it. We signaled our opposition to massive overreaches by the government in violating the privacy rights of Canadians, breaking long-standing principles in our justice system of governments requiring some kind of judicial oversight before they open mail and go through people's personal records and things like that. Our leader, Pierre Poilievre, demanded that this government remove those offensive parts of the bill. We'll see what they actually do. I will point out that it's pretty embarrassing for this public safety minister. I mean, Bill C-2 is actually the first piece of legislation that this government introduced. This was their signature response to pressures and requests from the U.S. government to improve the situation at our border, and they got it so wrong, so badly right off the bat that the ministers basically had to use a mulligan and a do-over. So we'll go through this new piece of legislation very thoroughly, and we'll have more to say once we've done that. Thanks very much, everyone.
Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. I was pleased to introduce this afternoon Bill C-12, the Strengthening Canada's Immigration System and Borders Act. It has many elements of Bill C-2. It is a bill that I expect to have broader support within this House to be able to get it passed in an expedited manner. So look forward to your questions.
Can you outline what the changes are, the differences between the two?
Sure. The major feature, so C2 has lawful access. It has the element of postal searches of postal of mail that's coming through the Canada Post system, as well as the $10,000 limit as part of the money laundering elements of Bill C2.
Why didn't you make these changes initially?
Look, this bill was introduced, as you're aware, within days of forming government. Throughout the summer, we had the opportunity to meet and talk to many Canadians, many organizations, many groups that work in different elements of where this bill will impact. We've also had an opportunity to speak with other parliamentarians, and we felt that essentially putting forward a second bill that carves out the more contentious elements of Bill C2 will enable us to get swifter passage of the bill.
So are you saying that you basically rushed the bill to appease Donald Trump? Is that what you're saying?
Did I say that?
Well, you said that you had quickly doing this bill after the government was formed. Now you've done all these consultations. Why didn't you do all of that in the first place instead of now reintroducing a bill only after people complained about it? So why didn't you do it initially? Was it rushed?
Every bill has its life cycle, and this particular bill in C2, when we introduced it, it did come from informed decisions from a range of different departments. There's some 8 or 9 different departments that informed the bill. Having spoken to many stakeholders, the decision was made to bring forward a new bill.
Minister, why not just amend C2 and then come back, do your homework, and come back to the drawing board with a new bill with the more contentious parts?
Look, the amendment process, as you know, can be quite cumbersome, and there are strict guidelines on what could be amended and what couldn't. We felt that, first off, having C12, incorporating many of the most important elements that were part of C2 as a separate standalone bill was important. C2 will still continue with the other elements, including lawful access, which I'm quite committed to. We'll go through in a separate track. So the amending was not necessarily the option. It's about ensuring that we have a broader consensus on the elements in C12 that's there, and to work towards C2 as well.
Are you comfortable with parts 14 and 15, the lawful access, as they stand now? Even people who are national security hawks say, whoa, 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 whoa. Are you comfortable with the current form of this bill, C2?
The lawful access regime, Canada is the only Five Eyes country that does not have a regime. We have 2 Supreme Court decisions that informed the manner in which the lawful access regime should work. There are certainly potential for amendments to strengthen it. I've read a number of different pieces on it. Some of them are quite compelling. Some of them are misinformed. And I think what we need to get to is a general consensus on what lawful access looks like. The world that we're working in today with the massive use of technology, with AI, with a range of new technology that has essentially made police techniques antiquated, and the inability of police to do proper investigation, particularly in the context of childhood sexual exploitation, child porn, and so on. I do think it requires governments to act. Whether it is in the current form or whether in a form that we can build broader consensus, it is up to the Parliament and to the process. But on a personal level, I'm committed to lawful access as a principle that should be in Canadian law.
Are you worried about parts of the bill now lacking teeth when it comes to fighting organized crime, money laundering, fentanyl? Those are all things that the White House has raised, and you're taking out the majority of the parts of the bill that specifically act on these issues.
There's only 3 parts that are being changed. Lawful access is one. I said money laundering, very small element of money laundering, not the entire piece. It's the $10,000 limit, and the other piece is postal. So those are elements. That doesn't contain the full scope of the bill. It is quite a wide bill, as you're aware, and I believe that it's responding to the challenges we have at the border. It's responding to the needs of law enforcement to be able to have additional tools to do their work. And as I said, C2 will still continue on a parallel track.
Are your American counterparts aware that you're taking out these parts of the bill? What was their reaction if you've informed them?
Look, we've had a number of conversations with the Americans over the last several months, and those conversations will continue.
Was it you have from opposition parties that with those withdrawals they will support that bill, and from which party you have some guarantees?
Well, look, I don't think I should be speculating on that right now. What I believe is we have put forward a very important bill that addresses issues around immigration as well as border that is needed today in Canada in response to a range of issues, including some opinions from south of the border. And I believe it is one that will have broader support. I would encourage you to speak to other parties to determine where they would stand. But I am comfortable in saying that this should get broader support.
What's your timeline for passing C12?
Look, the parliamentary calendar is quite full, as you're aware. A number of very important bills have already gone to the committee study, so this does open up some discussion. We hope to have debate at some point in the next several weeks, and hopefully it will get to committee as soon as possible.
Can I just ask, Minister, are you tearing up the bill of your own volition, or were you under pressure from PMO to do something so that the bill can progress to committee stage?
This happened as a result of conversations I've had with a number of people. This is not coming from PMO or anyone else. This is coming from informed by the discussions we've been having with a range of stakeholders as well as parliamentarians.
Minister, was this episode of coming back with a new revised bill a wake-up call or a hard lesson learned that you are still in a minority government, and what can you tell us about it?
Look, I've been an MP for 10 years, and I have been responsible for a number of critical bills that have gone through the House, some that didn't make it through the House, but for example, Bill C-15, which is the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, a very contentious initially and difficult bill, but we were able to listen to opposition. We were listening to, in that case, a lot of Indigenous people and ensure that we get the right balance. And I think the notion that once a bill is tabled, it needs to pass as is, I reject that notion, and I believe that there needs to be an element of flexibility on the part of ministers, especially as they bring forward a bill. From the outset, I've been very clear, Minister Fraser has been clear, and other colleagues have been clear, that we're open and willing to work with stakeholders as well as all parties on strengthening the bill and making sure that it finds the right balance between civil liberties and ability of law enforcement to more effectively do their job.
Help me understand this. So C2 will continue on a separate track with a lot of the measures that are actually being introduced in C12. Can you help us understand?
Sure.
It's quite confusing.
Yeah, well, so it's basically now it'll be 2 bills. So C12 will go through the House process. I anticipate that to go go before C2, and once C2, if it's the will of the House to pass C12, then the elements that are repetitive in C2 will be deleted because it will be repetitive, and I think the clerk actually does that pro forma as part of the process of going through line by line and committee. So when there's a redundancy, it'll be deleted. So it'll be the elements that are not repeated that will be part of C2. However, as it goes through the committee process, there could be amendments to the three elements that I talked about that will remain in C2.
So you're not backing down on those. You still want those things to pass, correct?
I'm saying that those are important elements, right? I mean, there's no question they're important, including lawful access. You talk to any law enforcement agency, and what I would really invite many of you to do is to connect with the local law enforcement agency in your area and walk through the challenges they have in using modern technology. And the example I use is many of you may know Bowers. It's a directory where if you have somebody's phone number, you can go to that directory and get the person's address. And C2 nowhere doesn't go anywhere close to it, but that technology has really challenged the ability of, for example, law enforcement to call up a particular telecom company and say, is this number attached to your company? And if they say yes, and right now there's no compulsion to say yes, C2 requires that. Any information beyond that requires a warrant. So I think this is where my invitation to all of you is really look at the challenges that law enforcement is facing today as images. Sometimes, one image of a young person being exploited could blow up within hours, and it could be across the world. And when I was at the Five Eyes in England, that's what I heard. That's what I heard from survivors. That's what I heard from individuals who've been working in this space. So I'm quite sympathetic to the challenges that's faced. We need to be absolutely clear. There are civil liberties elements that we need to ensure that their safeguards are there. But there is certainly a need for consensus for us to have an element of lawful access that will both protect individual victims, but also protect the civil liberties of Canadians.
We'll take one last question, please.
I have a procedural question, which is, which bill is going to go to committee first? Because obviously Bill C2 is further advanced, it's the second reading. You're just introducing this. How can you ensure that this new and improved bill actually takes precedence?
Parliament is the master of its own domain, as they say. So having said that, I do anticipate the Bill C12 will have greater traction and likely go through the committee phase early. This is me speculating, but of course, there's no guarantee.
Can you just quickly clarify why you're keeping the immigration changes? Those have also been widely criticized. So can you explain why you're pushing ahead with those?
Sure. There are many who have called for changes to the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. There are complicated changes, but ones that I think required, just given many of the challenges we've been having at the border. I think Minister of Immigration will be more than glad to elaborate at some point, but this is an essential element of the bill that we are carrying forward.
Minister, thank you very much. If I could just jump one more.
That's
You mentioned the IP. Allow me to push back a bit. Part 14 literally allows the government or the authorities to go to any service provider, any part of the country, and ask them. That can be a gynecologist, could be a child psychiatrist, could be anywhere. But it's not Bell, Rogers, and TELUS. The concerns that civil liberties people have is that it is anyone with no warrant, with just a reasonable grounds to suspect that a crime may be committed, to then get a trove of data about if a person is a client or not. So the example you gave, sure, is a very simple one, but there's much more complex systems. So again, you said that you heard compelling criticism of this bill. How do you explain how far this goes without any judicial supervision, just judicial review?
So let me just clarify, right? On the need to get what's called subscriber information, the singular information that could be obtained by subscriber information is this individual a client of, say, a telco or not? That is the only question that can be asked. Beyond it, when you want to get subscriber information, the police need to provide a warrant. It's based on a reasonable grounds to suspect, which is where I think you're going with this, which is a demand. Well, no, it's not. Services. But so the first element is this individual, like, are you providing service to this individual, right? So telco, internet service provider, and so on. So if that is broader than I think we want it to be, I think we will be more than willing to look at how we constrain that. That's the first element. The second element is, based on that, we can go to a telco and say, here's a warrant. Would you provide subscriber information about this individual? And that's very basic information, nothing to do with browsing history, nothing to do with anything other than the name of the individual, contact information, and that's it. That's based on a reasonable grounds to suspect standard. Anything beyond that will require, again, another warrant, which will be in a higher standard of reasonable grounds to believe, which is the normal standard for most warrants. So, look, if there's elements of it that we need to tighten, we will be more than willing to do that. But for the purpose of today, C12 is the focus, where lawful access is not incorporated in that bill. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, I think you heard very clearly in there, you have a Prime Minister who promised Canadians that he would secure a deal. He secured a deal on auto, secure a deal on lumber, secured a deal. Instead, we have double the tariffs in Canada, and the Prime Minister still not able to stand up for auto workers in Ontario as jobs move south of the border. Instead, he's promised Donald Trump $1 trillion of our private sector investment going that way, not coming this way.
And any thoughts on the